And boy, am I excited to have a special edition this month in our housing update. As you can see, we have a new face on the camera here, and that is my, next to a few other people, one of my idols as it comes to data in the housing market. David Childers from KCM, welcome and thank you for coming to share information with us.
Thank you, Mary, and it's exciting to be here with you. I'm grateful for the invitation and excited to talk for a few minutes just about what is happening in real estate. So thank you for the invite.
Oh, my pleasure. So, as you may have realized from what we were talking about before, we're going to talk to buyers and what's happening, how to win, sellers, and what to do right now. And then this crazy thing of the bubble. So we're going to jump right into it, David, and go ahead and let you start with your slides.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So let's talk maybe with buyers first, and then we'll move to what's happening with sellers, and we'll talk about this bubble question. So the slides up there on the screen, prices across the country are rising, and I think all of us, that are maybe looking at homes know that. But what I'm going to talk about today is what's happening nationally. Now, what I know about Mary and the Bartos Group, they will give you the best information for the area that you're looking in. So reach out to somebody for that. But across the country, home prices are going up, and the rate at which they're going up is accelerating. So this graphic here is from CoreLogic. CoreLogic's an organization that tracks real estate data, one of the best out there. And you can see each month as the year has gone on, homes have begun appreciating at a faster rate, causing many of us to think, all right, well, how much is too much, Mary? Is it 20%? Is it 20? Where are we heading here? And oh, by the way, are we going to fall off a cliff and, this end poorly? And so I want to validate if you're looking to buy a home right now and you're feeling like, gosh, the market is heating up, you're absolutely right. And our goal today is we're going to give you the confidence to move forward and be educated about what's happening. So first of all, that is happening, and we'll talk about that. But the other thing that's happening with buyers is across the country, many of them are getting frustrated. One of the things that I love about the Bartos Group, and Mary and I talked about that, and she told me, not the buyers we're working with. We're able to confidently give them the certainty they need around what they're trying to buy. But no doubt with record low interest rates, last year, the average 30-year fixed hit a low 16 times. The average 30-year fixed right now in this country is 2.78%. I don't know a time, certainly we've ever seen rates that low other than, during the pandemic, and maybe won't again soon. Homes are selling extremely fast. I just talked about the rate at which they're appreciating. And a lot of folks going, I don't know if I want to buy right now. And we're starting to see that come through in the data. Go ahead, Mary.
David, I want to pause you because do you remember your interest rate of your first house?
I do. We were at about 6.5%. I don't remember the exact rate, but it was in that neighborhood.
Mine was like 10% plus. It was crazy. So to see these interest rates and what you can afford today is phenomenal. And I think you hit something really quickly that I wanted to go back to, and that is, you can win in these multiple offer situations if you have the right agent, whether it's with the Bartos Group who gives our guidance, and 70% of our almost 400 families are buyers. So we're winning a lot. But you can do that in your, in another area perhaps that you're looking to win in. But I just wanted to kind of add those couple of things in there because 2.8%, David, wow, blow your hair back.
Yeah, it's unreal. And it's made, it's one of the issues that we've had is everybody said, if we're going to do it, now is the time, right? I mean, people buying second homes, people looking to change their primary residence. And if we know of anything last year, the meaning of home changed for so many people with work and school and working out, everything we've been doing at home. But let me show you what that means in some of the data, because that's what we want to look at. This next slide is the monthly showing time index. So you're not in the real estate business. Showing time is the mechanism that you schedule showings through. So think about, we want to go see this home on a Saturday, goes through showing time, and we can tell then how much demand is out there in the market relative to people signing up and viewing open houses and scheduling showings. And so if you look at this, this goes all the way through June, back to January of last year, and the red bars to the left represent the downturn and the lockdown during the pandemic. And then we shot back over the summer, and everybody came out and said, we want to see a house. And then we started this year, people feeling more confident getting out, and more people going out to look at homes. And what do you see there for the last 3 months? We've seen this kind of slow decline in the number of people going out and looking at homes. Now, you can say, all right, we're entering the summer, and that's normal seasonal demand. And do I think people are going to take a vacation this year? I think they are, and I think they'll probably take 2 if they can get out of the house, and do it, because they couldn't do something last year. But no doubt there are buyers out there right now that have said, we've tried to buy a home, we're a little bit frustrated, and we're going to maybe take a little bit of time off. This market's getting so hot, I'm worried about us buying something at the top of the market. And again, I'm going to address that in just a minute. But if you're a buyer right now, here are my words to you. The front end of a market turn is happening across the country. And I think there's some short-term opportunity when others are saying, we're not sure we're going to look. If you're serious about buying a home right now this summer, I would highly encourage you to have a conversation with your agent, contact the Bartos Group and say, hey, I want to start, looking aggressively, because Mary, I think there's opportunity right now for buyers.
There really is. And, we're seeing that locally as well, that our showings have gone down, but there's just no inventory.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot to show. And when it comes up, there's still, some markets are, feeding frenzy, and ours has been. Right now, it's not as crazy. But I had a buyer just win day one property on the market, and they wanted to go in lower. And I'm like, if you want this, there's multiple offers. We better go in high.
Right.
And they want it.
Right.
Good price properties are moving quickly. Didn't show it to them, sight unseen.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's happening all over the country. I'm certainly hearing it from agents and people that we talk to. But if you're a buyer right now, being serious about that, listening to what the scenario is, and presenting a competitive offer is what it takes to win in today's market.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about sellers for just a minute, because I think that's the other side of that coin you just mentioned. We need more sellers out there across the country. So let me give you a couple of facts about sellers right now. If you're kind of thinking maybe we will sell, maybe that's something we want to do. American home equity in the last year has skyrocketed. The average gain in equity on a mortgaged home is just over $33,000 in this country. The average equity of a home with a mortgage on it is $216,000 on average. And we know that 38% of the homes in this country are owned free and clear. So staggering amounts of equity. And if you're listening to this thinking about selling, or if you're listening to this wondering how much equity you have in your home, here's what I would say. Most people, when they find out how much equity they have in their home, they're floored. They don't realize it due to the degree of home appreciation over the last year and even this year, what we've seen. And many people looking at that, Mary, saying, hey, we've got that money. We can now do what we want to do, the home we want to buy. Maybe we want to downsize, whatever the case may be, but leveraging that equity to buy the home that they need.
Yeah, David, what's happening in some of our markets, because we're in a second home, primary market is further away from the water. Sure. But here in Southwest Florida, we have a lot of second home owners. And I will tell you that I am, currently working with somebody that is, in the last 3 years, gotten some crazy kind of equity, because we saw almost a 40% increase when the market shifted. So somewhere in the fall to today is a 40% increase. I have a client that's looking at a luxury property that he's gotten, almost that 40% increase in from when he bought it last summer.
Wow.
That he's now looking to flip that into a larger property, because that's where they want to be forever later. Right now, and it's the Tetris that we're pulling, because I would move if I could go somewhere, or where is that somewhere would be.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the issue across the country is, folks saying, hey, we want to do something. We're not sure where we will go. Now, let me give you a little perspective, again, looking at the data relative to those putting their homes on the market, because I think there is something we can take from this. This is a look here from NAR at new monthly listings as we've gone throughout the year. So you see, started out January and February relatively flat, but since then, even here in June, slowly we're climbing in the number of listings that are coming to market. Okay, so what's important about that? One, what we said is, the equity that people have, the individual that you just mentioned, Mary, that's saying, hey, we bought this home a year or two ago, and now we want to do this, and here's what we're going to do. But here's what I would say if you're thinking about selling right now. When do you ever want to sell something? You want to sell something when there are fewer of those on the market, and no doubt, the point of it being a great time to sell has never been higher in this country. And I do believe, like I mentioned, we're on the front end of a shift. I think if folks wait, they may miss that hot market. We're certainly not going to move into, a shift into a buyer's market anytime soon. But I think if you're thinking about it, now is the right time as we see more and more properties come into market. But big questions to answer, like you said, where are we going to go and what does that look like, if someone's deciding to sell now?
And we are playing that Tetris, maybe they're not ready to put their home on the market, but they raised their hand and said, hey, if you bring me a buyer or I have a buyer, would you sell? I would do it. And then we'll find another. So we play that a little bit, as well as, the point of the whole thing of, it's time for me to sell. So Isabel Nunez says, can you please go over about some folks thinking about we are heading to a wave of foreclosures? Please explain our marketplace and across the country. Great question. Sure. As we talk through that.
Yeah, that is the question on most people's minds. So let me say a couple of things, and Mary, you get this information out to everyone. I'm not going to talk specifically about it today, but first, experts are not calling for depreciation in the market, okay, for homes to lose value. If anything, we're seeing projections for interest rates to rise and prices to rise. You can wait if it's the right thing, and we certainly want you to wait if it's the right thing for you. It's just going to cost more down the road. So to go back to the question that was just asked, Mary, are we going to see a wave of foreclosures? In just a second, I'm going to cover the bubble information. Are we in a bubble in real estate in across the country? But as we look at those that have been in forbearance, which is the tool given by the federal government to help homeowners weather the storm due to the pandemic, and those that are coming out of it, about half of those coming out, actually 44%, came out of it so far and didn't need it. They paid off their loan when they came out. Now, I'm not saying those people were incorrect in taking it, but maybe they were a small business owner and didn't know what tomorrow holds, and so they said, I'm going to take forbearance, but they paid it off. There's another section. Go ahead.
No, I said spot on. We've known some people that just weren't sure, so they post forbear 3 or 4 months of, because they could.
Yeah, the other large section of people, about 38% of people, have come out of forbearance and they've gone through a workout with their bank. Think about that as a deferral, where they tack the money on the back end of the loan. They've gone through a rate and term refinance. What do we know? Interest rates have fallen. So they said, hey, look, we can now put that money back into principal, refinance it, and our payment's lower. They're in a better situation. And about 16% of people coming out right now still are challenged. So right now, those numbers that have been estimated across the country are about 200,000 to 300,000 homeowners that have come out of forbearance that have some kind of challenge. Now, I'm not saying all of those will go into foreclosure, but if they did, they would be snapped up on the market tomorrow immediately, oftentimes selling for more than the list price, like you just mentioned in that deal. Let me put that in just a little bit of perspective to answer the question there, Mary. Back in the housing crisis crash, 9.3 million homes went into foreclosure. 9.3 million. We're
lot.
talking here, those affected 200,000 to 300,000. Now, I'm not saying that's not a crisis for that family and that individual, because it is. And if you're in that situation, I would say reach out to somebody on Mary's team and say, hey, can we have a conversation about where I'm at and how much equity I have in my home? And I think we're in a scenario today where you could sell your home, put some money in your pocket, and hopefully get to the other side of the crisis that you're in. We want you to do that. But this is nowhere near like what we saw in the housing crisis. And I think folks kind of looking at the data would look at that and say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense.
David, you made a good point, because we had somebody that, in the beginning of COVID, we couldn't get their price, what they were looking for. So we tried to go for a short sale, which none of the lenders were giving short sales.
Right.
About halfway through, the market shifted, and we went back to the owner and said, let's do this. We can get you the money. Can you bring a very small amount to the table? And they were thrilled. And it worked out for the buyer and for the seller. And because we were able to creatively think outside the box.
Right. And the bottom line with that, Mary, is today people have options where back in 08 and 09 it didn't. You remember there was a term in housing, and many maybe listening, maybe you knew somebody that went through this. It's called a strategic default, where you owed more on the home than it was worth and you just walked away. And that was a reality. Very, very different scenario today. And I'm going to break that down in the next piece when we talk about, are we in a housing bubble?
Right. Which we ask a lot, we have a lot of buyers that are looking down here and are fearful that they're going to buy high, just like it was before, and they're going to only sell low. Right. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
So I think that is the question. When people ask, are we in a housing bubble? What they're really asking is, should I buy at the top of the market? I feel like this is the top of the market. Nobody wants to go out and buy a home and next year it to be worth less than it is today. Okay. So I think going back to what we said, if I wasn't in the business, Mary, I'd be thinking the same thing. I'd be looking at home prices and going, this feels a lot like how it used to be. So let me kind of break down the difference between today and the housing crisis, and we'll kind of put this question on trial, okay? So I'm going to start out here with a quote from Dr. Frank Notaff, chief economist at CoreLogic. He says, there are marked differences in today's run-up in prices compared to 2005, which was a bubble fueled by risky loans and lenient underwriting. Today, loans with high-risk features are absent and mortgage underwriting is prudent. So if you remember back then, back in the housing crisis, there was a term coined, the term was irrational exuberance. And in real terms, what irrational exuberance was is people would go out and buy a home and they'd say, we really don't care what we paid for it because by 5 o'clock, it's going to be worth $50,000 more. And we know how that ended up. What we see.
I had to write that down.
Yeah, very, very different. And you remember all the loan products that were out there, Mary. We often joke that it was harder not to get a loan than to get a loan back pre-housing crisis, because you had no income, no verification loans. We had all the interest only and pick a pay type loans. So many different products out there that led to the crash. All right, so if we take that as an idea and we compare it to today, what you want to look at is how available is it to get a mortgage today? And in the industry, we use the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. I'm going to show it to you right here. It comes out from the National Association of Realtors. And what you want to look at is the higher the index, the easier it is to get a loan. The lower the index, the harder it is to get a loan. And you can just see visually here, back in the housing crisis, index was very, very high. And we're nowhere near where we were back then today. You can see in the little green box there, if anything, credit actually constricted during the pandemic when we saw some loan products go away. We saw some banks say, I'm a little bit concerned over here because of forbearance, because of those that have been affected. And so, and ask anybody that got a loan back then or has tried to get a loan in the last 5 to 10 years, certainly if you're self-employed, it's harder to get a loan today, and lending standards have adjusted dramatically. So here's the bottom line to that. we can look back on the housing crisis and say demand was inflated because people were buying homes that they shouldn't have bought. Whereas today, people have to qualify for the loan. They have to demonstrate an ability to repay. And we know that demand is real. Okay. Big point as we look at, are we in a bubble? Demand is real. People are qualifying for it. And they're buying homes all across the country. Next point I want to go into, and you're going to see this in the news, cash out refinances are very high right now. Okay, you're going to see cash out refinances are the highest they've been in 10 years. And that's going to be factually correct. Okay, the first quarter of this year, $41 billion in this country was cashed out as cash out refinances. Let me put this into perspective. What you see on your screen is a snapshot of cash out refinances going all the way back to 2001. The tall red bar there represents $320 billion cashed out in cash out refinances in 2006. Back then, people were out buying jet skis, financing lifestyle, going on vacation, thinking this will never end. And we know it ended, and it ended very badly. And ever since then, people have handled the equity in their home differently. See that little dip there? People aren't pulling money out to do something. If they pull money out, they're maybe sending a child to school. Maybe they're starting a business. They're making wise decisions because they say, you know what, my parents or a friend or somebody I love went through a hard time, and I'm going to do it different this time. So as we go through this year, go ahead.
That's spot on, because what we saw is, a number of years ago, not so much now, the home being used as a piggy bank.
Right.
So, where you'd have a couple of different, a second or even a third on there that were giving them money to get out because the rates, the asset was increasing so high. And right. You're right. We thought it was going to be for forever. Yeah. But, in our market, David, you may know this, and it may be a national number, but what are your thoughts on cash? Because I can tell you what our percentage is, but what would you think it would be?
All cash offers?
Yep.
Oh gosh, I would guess in your market it's a lot higher than nationally. But I've seen numbers in the 20 to 25% range.
So pull up your, sit down, make sure you got a stance here. We're at 50%.
Yeah.
So, and that's all, all over all prices. So in the luxury down to, the starter home.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it. I think there are a lot of that is happening out in the market. Yeah. And no doubt, and a big reason for that is people coming in from other markets that have that extreme equity, and maybe they're in a high priced market and they're coming in. And I'm not saying you're in a low priced market by any stretch of the imagination, but they're leveraging that equity to go out and buy something. And many people saying, you know what, we're going to, use some other investments because we believe in housing right now. And we believe it's a great investment. So you're seeing that all over the place. So cash out refinance is nowhere near what they were back then, but they will be at their highest level in 10 years. Just be prepared to see that, because if you think, you know what, I'm worried about the housing market, and you see that, you can be fooled by it. But really the truth is it's not anywhere near what it was back then. I'll give you one more point that I think is really probably, Mary, the biggest point that I would want people to know about the fact, are we in a bubble right now or not? If we look at, okay, people can qualify for loans. We know they're handling the equity in their homes differently. It's this. And this comes from Freddie Mac. The main driver of the housing shortfall has been the long-term decline in the construction of single-family homes. Now, if you're watching this next visual that I'm going to show you, it's probably the best way to explain why the housing market is what it is right now. Okay, and that's this visual right now. This is a look going all the way back to the 70s of single-family housing units completed in this country. And what stands out are the red bars there, where more homes were built prior to the crash than ever before. Hadn't happened before and hasn't happened since. 1.5 million homes built in this country for 3 years in a row. And what we know about that is after all those homes were built, we had a massive amount of supply. Buyers dropped off and homes lost about 20%. In the real estate business, the hardest hit during the downturn were builders. Back in 2008 and 2009, if you were to go into a bank and say, I'm a builder, I want to borrow some money, they would have run you out of the place.
Right.
you know. And since then, we just haven't built the homes in this country. A lot of builders got out of the business. And for the past 13 years, we have not hit the 50-year average of builds in this country. Literally, in the 70s and 80s, there were more homes built here than there have been in the last 10 years. So let's look at that. Homes haven't been built. We had this last year where everybody said home is much more important to us. Oh, by the way, millennials are moving through their peak home buying years, and they're saying, I want to buy. Interest rates are at an all-time low, and everybody jumped in. And we don't have the amount of homes that we need literally to keep up with population growth in this country. And that's caused the issue. So to round that out, it's not a bubble. It's simply a lack of supply. And you better believe right now, builders are saying, hey, we're going to build homes. We're going to do this. We're going to bring those homes to market, and they're trying their best. And it'll take them a while to catch up. Now, I do believe the frenzy will die down as interest rates and prices continue to rise. But no one right now is calling for depreciation in real estate.
You know, I love that you brought this all full circle, and to the point of new construction here in Southwest Florida. Many of our builders won't even give a price on a home until it's out of the ground.
Yeah,
because you add to this the inability to get supplies to build, or the high cost of the supplies because of the demand and everything else, or COVID just shut all the supply manufacturers down so they can't get them again. All of that has come together with new housing, and where we used to be able to take somebody in if they couldn't find what they wanted in a resale to a new construction, it's almost, I can't even say reverse. They've both gone away from us. That there is no new construction. I mean, you're lucky to get a new construction, and you're lucky to get the resale. So that's awesome. I have to tell you, David, and I know we're drawing near on our time, but the fact of the matter is that your knowledge got many of our clients through the pandemic when things were shutting down and they had just bought a home. And I was, taking your slides that you provided so graciously through our coaching firm, Tom Ferry organization, and the every other week. For a while, you were doing it every week, right? And giving us information and content to give out to our clients. So it is such a delight and pleasure to have you here with us to, so to speak, hear from the horse's mouth, because I was repeating what you were saying, back in all those many months.
Well, we are grateful for that, Mary, and thank you for the support of what we do. And let me say this as we wrap up. If you're listening to this, I would highly encourage you, if you're thinking about buying, you're thinking about selling, whether you're going to do that right now, whether you're going to do it in 6 months, to get the best advice. And what I know, I get a chance to talk to companies all over the country. And what I know Mary in the Bartos Group is about is giving buyers and sellers the absolute best advice. And that's what you have to have in this market. So Mary, know from our end, we're grateful for you and grateful for all that you do. If you're here in our office, we have a big wall that says, we believe every family should feel confident when buying and selling a home. And I know that's exactly what y'all are doing.
I love that. Well, David, thank you. Maybe by popular demand, we'll get you in another period of time in the future.
Let's do it. Let's do it again. I will do that. Yes.
I would love that. We can't thank you enough. Again, I'm Mary Bartos with the Bartos Group of Premier Plus Realty, and we look forward to giving you information here to make those knowledgeable decisions, whether you're buying or selling. Ciao.